Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new try and a brand new unit. We're going to talk a little bit this week about percents. Now, the last thing we did was proportions. We learned how to write proportions and solve proportions. We're going to look at a specific kind of proportion called the percent proportion, where we're going to be able to use our proportion skills to solve percent problems. So, this is the percent proportion. Um, this is what this lesson is all about. So this should 100% be written in your notes. So if this is not in your notes yet, please make sure this gets in your notes. Part over whole equals percent over 100. This is the proportion we're going to use to solve all sorts of percent problems. Now, you may remember back when we talked about fractions, decimals, and percents, that a fraction compares a part to a whole, right? If you have 3/5 of a pizza, for instance, there might be 5 pieces in the pizza and you have 3 of them, right? That's the part you have to how much make up a whole. And one of the ways we talked about turning that into a percent was if we could rewrite it as a fraction with a denominator of 100, then the top would be a percent because percent means out of 100. Okay, so we did something very similar to this. Okay, we're revisiting this idea and we're going to go a step further with it because now that we know how to solve proportions, there's a lot more that we can do, even when the bottom number doesn't directly go into 100. Okay, so we're going to show how to use it. One of the keys to using this is being able to correctly identify the part and the whole. So the percent is usually fairly obvious, right? Because it's usually got a percent sign by it. So 60% is what we're looking at in this case. This says 3 out of 5 is 60. So the part is going to be some percent of the other number. Okay, so the part here is 3. The whole is going to be the number that we're finding the percent of, right? So we're dealing with 60%. We're finding 60% of 3. Okay, and that's 60%. Or sorry, we're finding 60% of 5. And that 60% is 3. So the part is some percent of another number. The whole is the number we're finding the percent of. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to tell than other times, which is which. Okay. Another thing that we should write for our percent proportion that you might have noticed there is write the word for part, maybe in parentheses, put the word is. Okay. And for whole, put the word of. Okay, these are kind of clues. A lot of times you'll see the word is associated with the part and of associated with the whole. Because remember, the part is some percent of another number. The whole is a number we're finding a percent of. Okay, so looking back at this example, 3 is 60% of 5. Okay, so I'll be looking for the is and the of. Is will usually mean part, of will mean percent. All right, so let's try a couple. So we're going to set up our proportion. Okay, the 100 is always here. Okay, percent means out of 100. So no matter what we're doing with our percent problem, this number here is going to be 100. Okay, the number above it is going to be the percent. In this case, the percent is 70. Okay, the other number we're given is 600. So we got to ask ourselves, is 600 the part or is it the whole? Okay, and in this case, 600 is the number we're finding 70% of. So it's the whole. Right? The part is going to be whatever 70% of that number is. Okay, so these are questions we're going to be finding the part. Okay, so I can write this. I'll use an X. You can use whatever variable you want. Right up here to stand for the number that I don't know. Okay, then I can use my proportion solving skills. There's a couple ways to do this. You might notice right away, well, 600 is just 6 times bigger than 100. So you can use that idea to multiply the top by 6 as well. 70 times 6 is 420. So 420 would be our answer there. Okay. If you didn't notice that, not to worry. You can use your cross multiplication as normal. 100x equals 4200, gives you 420. I'm sorry, 42,000, not 4200. All right, let's try another one. What number is 40% of 400? Okay, so I'll set up my proportion. This is 100 as always. Okay, I know the percent is 40. And again, I'm finding some percent of 400. So 400 is the whole number here. I don't know the percent. Okay. Now again, you might notice this is a fairly easy one because we just have to multiply by 4. I'm going to go through the process just so that we can see that again as well. So remember the process to solve these normally is to do the cross products. So you multiply the numbers that are diagonal from each other. So we got 100 times x is 100x. And 400 times 40 is 16,000. Okay, and because that is a proportion, those numbers are equal. Okay. We can then use our equation solving skills to solve for x, divide by 100, which means I'm getting rid of 2 zeros over there. And I get 160. Okay, so that is my proportion. That means 160 is 40% of 400. If I use my reasoning skills, my understanding of percents, I should hopefully be able to tell that makes sense. 40% is a little less than half. 160 is a little less than half of 400. Okay. For this first one, 70% is more than half. 420 is more than half of 600. Okay, so don't forget what percent means to make sure you're getting reasonable answers. Okay, let's look at a couple where we're finding the whole. So the numbers are a little less pleasant here. Where at this point, you can be using calculators. Okay, probably wouldn't want to on a problem like this. Okay, so I set up my proportion. This is 100 for sure. Okay, so it says 18.2 is 28% of what number? So 28 is my percent. But in this case, I'm given that 18.2 is that percent of something else. So this is a case where 18.2 associated with the is here. This is the part. Okay, it's not the number I'm finding percent of, it's some percent of that number. So 18.2 is the part in this case. The whole, the number that this is 20% of, that's what I don't know. That's on the bottom. Okay. So hopefully you can see we're keeping this consistent too. X, this number I don't know, that's the 100%, that's the whole thing. This 18.2 is 28% of that. Okay. All right, so to solve this one, I'm going to do my cross multiplying. So 28 times x is 28x. 18.2 times 100 is 1820. Okay, do my equation solving like normal. And divide by 28. Get x by itself. So we got 1820 divided by 28. I'll pull up my calculator and give that a shot. 1820 divided by 28 is 65. So x equals 65. Okay. All right, let's try another one. 14.7 is 40% of what number? So I'm trying to find what number I'm finding the percent of. That's the whole. 14.7 is the part. Don't know the whole. Percent is 42, and this number is always 100. Okay, so multiplying those across multiplying, I get 42x equals 1,470. If I divide that, divide both sides of that by 42 to get x by itself. x equals 1470 divided by 42 is 35. And there's my answer. X is 35. Okay. So does it make sense that this would be 42% of 35? Again, 42% is a little less than half. Half of 35 would be 17 and a half. And this is a little less than that. So that does seem to make sense to me. Okay. Let's do a couple where we're finding the percents, and then you'll have a chance to try a couple. So 12 is what percent of 8? So setting up my portion, this is always 100. In this case, I don't know what the percent is. This is my unknown. It says 12 is some percent of 8. Okay, so see the is associated with the 12 here. The of is by the 8. Okay, 12 is some percent of 8. Now that might look a little weird because you might assume the 12 should be on the bottom because it's the bigger number. But if you think about it, the whole is not always the biggest number. Okay, it's possible for it to have a part bigger than the whole, but think about what that says about your percent. Okay, if the part is bigger than the whole, that means your percent is going to be more than 100%. Okay, so don't just automatically assume the bigger number is the whole, right? The part can be bigger than the whole if your percent is more than 100. So I should expect to get a number more than 100 here. Okay? Looking at 8 and 100, there's not an easy number that I can multiply by. So I'll do this a long way. So 8 times x equals 12 times 100, which is 1200. I can solve that by dividing by 8. I get x equals 150. Okay, so 150 is my answer. 12 is 150% of 8. It's more than 100% like I predicted. All right, let's try another one. Write my 100 automatically. I don't know the percent, so that's my unknown. But 7 is some percent of 13. So 7 is the part, 13 is the whole. Definitely know a number I can multiply 13 by to get 100. So I'll do this a long way again. 13x equals 7 times 100 is 700. Divide both sides by 13. And I get what 700 divided by 13 is going to be an ugly number. That's 53.84615 keeps going. So I'm going to round it to at least one decimal point. So the first decimal point is an 8 with a 4 after it, so that rounds down. I'll say it's about 53.8. Okay, you can use a little wavy equal sign to mean about. So x is about 53.8. Okay, which would be a little more than half. 7 is a little more than half of 13. That works. Okay. All right. So I'm going to have you try a couple, and I haven't specified which thing you're missing. So that's going to be the toughest part of this is recognizing which number or which thing you're looking for. If you're looking for the part, percent, or whole, so you set up the proportion correctly. So go ahead and give these a try, and then we will see how you did. All right, welcome back. Hopefully these are the answers that you got. So first one, what is 40% of 5? So what we're trying to find is what the percent of 5 is. The part of 5, that is 40%. So it's the part that I don't know. 5 is the number I'm finding the percent of, that's the whole. 40 is the percent, so here's what it looks like. Okay, this was a pretty easy one to solve because I noticed 100 divided by 20 is 5, so 40 divided by 20 is 2. Okay, you could also do the cross multiplying, but we didn't need to in this case. Okay, second one, 4 is 80% of what number? So 4 is the part, 80 is the percent. What we don't know is the number we're finding the percent of. So the whole is the unknown here. Again, this one is a pretty easy one to figure out because, again, 80 divided by 20 was 4. So I can do 100 divided by 20 to get 5. So 4/5 is 80%. 4 is 80% of 5. Okay. All right, let's try a word problem. So read for yourself this one, and well, I'll read it for you, and then decide which is missing, the part, whole, or percent, and see if you can set up and solve a proportion for it. There were 489 students at a school assembly. This was 65% of all the students who attend CGMS. How many students attend Cottage Grove Middle School? All right, give it a shot. We'll see how you do. All right, welcome back. Hopefully, this is the answer you got 752 students. Okay, so 489, those are the number of students that were at the assembly. Okay, but that's only part of the population. All right, we want to know everybody in the school. 65% of them are at the assembly. 100% of the students would be the whole school. So the whole is the thing I don't know. This number is 65% of the whole. Okay, so we set up like this. Do our cross multiplying. 65x equals 48,900. Dividing by 65 gives us 752.3. Now think, why didn't I put 752.3 as my answer? Well, it's asking how many students attend Cottage Grove Middle. That's not something that could be a decimal. So the situation here tells me I need a whole number. So I round this to the nearest whole number, which is 752. Again, don't forget to go back to the question. Make sure you're answering the question when you get your number. Okay. All right. Let's try a couple more and see if you can set up and solve these ones. All right, welcome back. For this first one, both of these were actually ones where I was looking for the percent. Hopefully you picked up on that. It says 9 is what percent of 25? So 9 is the part, 25 is the whole, and I want to know what percent 9 is of 25. So if I set this up, it's pretty easy to see. Well, 25 times 4 is 100, so 9 times 4 is 36. So x is 36%. Now, people get in kind of a bad habit. As soon as we start working with percent problems like this, people want to put a percent sign after all of their answers. Remember, a percent sign is only appropriate if it's the percent that we're finding. If you're finding the part or the whole, please do not put a percent sign on those. Okay. All right, this last one I've saved the work for because I want to show you a little shortcut you may or may not have thought about. So it says 15 is what percent, I don't know the percent, of 12. 12 is the number, the whole. So this is, again, one that the part is bigger than the whole. So I should expect more than 100%. So I could go ahead and I could do my cross multiplying right away. But one thing you may notice is 15/12 is a fraction that could be reduced. So I want you to think to yourself, is it okay for me to reduce this fraction before I do this problem? And the answer is yes. It's fine to reduce. When I reduce a fraction, I'm not changing the number. I'm just making it simpler, okay? But the value of this, if I reduce it, is going to be the same as what I get when I reduce it. So if x over 100 is equal to this, x over 100 will also be equal to whatever this is reduced, okay? That might make my numbers easier to work with, because right now, I don't have a number I could just multiply 12 by to get 100, okay? But if you look at 15 and 12, they're both divisible by 3. So if I divide those by 3, I get a 5 and a 4. And 4, there is a number I can multiply 4 by to get 100. Okay, 4 times 25 would give me 100. So if I'm multiplying the top and bottom by 25, well, 5 times 25 is 125. So x is 125. That is a percent, so I can put the percent sign. And like I suspected, I ended up with something more than 100 because my part was bigger than my whole. Okay. So is that a necessary thing you had to do? No. You could have multiplied and solved like normal, but kept our numbers easier, made the problem easier, and hopefully you're thinking of all those tools that we've learned before and what you could use that would help you to get to the answer. Okay, that is a totally acceptable thing to do because when we reduce a fraction, we don't change it. We're changing what the numbers are, but the value is the same. Okay. All right, that's all I got for you. Go ahead and give it a shot. Remember to ask questions if you have them.